Guided Reading Lesson 6. I am reading this book to my Year 5 class with permission from Scholastic. So this is where we had got up to last time. And this was Lillian Mayhew in the film that Rose was watching. And one of the questions I asked you was what was similar between Ben and Rose's story. As you can see, at the moment there is a storm going on, and actually in Ben's story that was also happening too, so there were a couple of crossovers. But so far, the guided reading answers I've seen, you've got a really good understanding of the story so far, so let's hope it continues. So we're going to begin. Ben's whole life, as far as he knew, his mother had never had a boyfriend. She had friends on the lake and in town, and she stayed out late sometimes without telling Ben where she'd been, but she never brought anyone home with her, so he never asked. There was only Major Tom, but Ben knew he was just a fantasy. He stared at the date on the bookmark. It was from the year Ben had been born. Things began to fall into place into his mind. If a man named Danny had known his mother the year he'd been born, and he signed a note with the words, "Love Danny," was it possible that he could have been his mum's boyfriend? And if he was a boyfriend, could he by any chance have been Ben's father? In an instant, it all seemed possible. He'd asked his aunt in the morning if she knew anything. Ben looked again at the address on the bookmark. His mind reeled with the idea that his father might live in New York City, and then he thought about all the money in the rainy day fund. Ben rubbed his forehead as his imagination took over. Maybe his mum had been planning something much bigger than a trip to Duluth. Could she have wanted to take him to New York City to introduce him for the first time to his father? Ben had been holding his breath, and he exhaled. What was he thinking? Even if Danny was an old boyfriend of his mum's, there's no proof that he was Ben's father. Ben pulled on the chain around his neck again and absently ran his fingernail along the edge of the locket. To his surprise, he felt a click as the locket opened. He expected to see a little photo of his mum, but instead there was a tiny black and white photo of a man. He had a moustache and sideburns and big dark eyes that looked familiar to Ben somehow. The photograph had dislodged slightly from the locket. Ben carefully removed it. On the back was a single word: Daniel. The photo trembled in Ben's hand. He turned it over again and pressed it back into the locket. He stared into Daniel's eyes. Now he knew why they looked so familiar. They were Ben's eyes. There was proof. His father wasn't Major Tom, lost forever among the stars. His father was Daniel, and he lived in New York City. Ben looked at the phone number on the bookmark. All he had to do was call. He moved towards the blue phone sitting on the nightstand. He read the phone number several times. Outside, the storm grew worse, still shaking. Ben picked up the receiver and held it to his good ear. He hesitated, then dialed the number. He slid the bookmark back between the pages of the book. The phone was ringing. The End, an Artcraft Pictures production. So we're back at Rose's story now. So where do you think Rose might be going? Again, what do you notice about the weather? What do you notice as well when it says closed for sound installation? Think about the time when this would have been set. Can link this to one of the history lessons that we did. What do you think Rose is thinking? What does her facial expression show? So first sound system. Experience 100% all talking, see and hear. So now we've seen this, what do you think the cinema experience would have been like that Rose just had? Because it wouldn't be what you would experience now. So just think, how do you think that would feel? Look really closely at Rose. What's her expression tell us? So again, it looks like she's rushing. Where do you think she could be rushing to? Focus on the weather here. Do you think it's safe for Rose to be wandering to wherever she is going? If you think about her and Ben, they're both alone at the moment. When Ben opened his eyes, he was lying on the floor, staring at the ceiling. Something smelled terrible and burnt. Thankfully, the rain had stopped and everything was silent and peaceful. He could go back to his cousin's house now. He wanted to get up, but he felt so tired. The bed, the nightstand, and the dresser seemed terribly far away, as if Ben were looking at them through the wrong end of his telescope. In the distance, he saw the blue telephone. It was off the hook and seemed to be smouldering. Then through the window, he saw something that seemed impossible. He saw rain, still pouring down from the sky, streaking hard against the glass. He saw lightning flash without thunder. How odd, he thought. The storm hadn't stopped. Such quiet rain. It had been so loud before. Where had all the noise gone? So where do you think Rose is going? We need to make a prediction. Just say it out loud. You don't need to write it down. Where could she be going? What do you think this might be showing? What might happen next? Uh-oh, that doesn't look good. So she tripped over on the rock here. What do you think she's thinking at this moment? What do you think she's thinking at this exact moment? She's escaped. She's gone to the cinema. I'm not quite sure where she is now. I'm in trouble with these pages. There we go. Again, how do you think she's feeling? If you compare that to how she looked when she was at the cinema, contrast there.